Well, if the Honourable Adele Farina was rising, I'll give you the call. Otherwise, I'll give it to the Honourable Dave Grills first.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the hard work of the Minister for her work towards the facilities in Lockridge, my old stomping ground, and Kiara. They're very much needed, and also it's a good place for them to be because we have a bit of a problem out there. But also, I'd like to acknowledge that we have a problem in the mining and pastoral region, my region, but also the region of WA, and we're talking about the Kimberley with this young fellow. So the Minister's done a pretty good job, I think, of going out there and doing that and getting these things started, but I think we still have a bit of a way to go, and I'm sure you would understand that. With regard to the Honourable Member Sally Talbot, who raised it, I think that just from what was happening here today, this issue is not about what happened or may not have happened with a young person up in the Kimberley. I can speak on this because having been a police officer there, but for the grace of God go I, when there are no facilities available in remote places and police are the only people on duty and are called to these things, they have to deal with that every day in every single way. And whatever happens to that young person, or whatever may not happen to that young person, their duty of care is to look after that person to the best of their ability. They don't always have that best of the ability. They don't always have DCP and people on board to help them out. So I think to single out one instance of the young fellow in that case is not good. And what it will do is have an adverse effect that if civil litigation is something that we talk about, then people might stop doing their jobs as well as they might do because they might be in fear of losing their houses or their job or whatever else might come along. The total point here, and what we all seem to miss, is that there's kids out there, people out there that suffer from lots of diseases including FASD. What we really need to do is get back to what FASD is about and educate people and stop it from happening, and not talking about how we can fix things and how we can do that. You need to get down to the root cause and stop it from happening. Comorbidity is something that medical practitioners and people talk about. Comorbidity is the two or more physical or psychiatric illnesses, i.e. alcohol or substance dependence and depression. And quite often people present that way. You can't tell whether a person's having an episode or having an effect of a illegal substance or alcohol, and you have no idea of how that has affected that person. Quite often, kids, my experience, that are subject to FASD, they end up abusing substances and abusing alcohol themselves because it's the only way that they can cope with what happens. And once again, when all the other persons and the other agencies and everybody else is tucked up in bed, they're the ones dealing on the front line with it. And quite often, that will take them away from their duties of protecting the community and frontline duties to looking after this person, where if we put a little bit more in the grassroots and work together, and here's the thing, work together, cooperate, and use all the services the government spend money on to work together and trying to prevent this happening. And when it does happen, let's have some mechanisms in place that actually help to fix the problem and sort it out. Because what happens is a person in this condition, and I can tell you because I've seen it, ends up in a lockup, a police lockup. And that's not the place for anybody like this to be. I would ask, and I'm happy to work with anybody who will be on board, but I will ask the government to go further on this and look at taking this and placing it into to regional WA, because there is a need there as well. And the need there is probably just as great, if not greater, because of the tyranny of distance and the lack of facilities that may be available to those people. Also, I do know from first-hand experience too that there is a certain amount of cultural issues attached to people who succeed within communities. Quite often, there is pressure from both sides for that person to succeed and to work in whatever projects they're in and succeed in that project, but there's also sometimes pressure from the other side, from family and friends. And it's very hard for somebody who wants to achieve, wants to succeed, if they do not have that support from family and friends. The support from family and friends should come from somebody who has an idea of how to deliver that. Having kids doesn't come with a brochure on how to raise a child, and quite often the people who are having children, 15, 12-year-old, in some case girls, don't have any idea how to raise families, and neither do the other people. It's quite often left to one member of the family, usually the matriarch, the mother, to raise those kids in that family. They don't have the tools to raise the family, so we've got to look at how do we fix that. You give them the tools or give them the knowledge or the assistance that they need to do that. We need to go back to that and work with people. It's cognitive. It's learned behaviours. If you can't teach anybody anything that has any value, then that person can't pass that on to anybody else. It's tragic that it happens. It's tragic that it still goes on. It's tragic that we sit here and talk about it instead of actually getting together and doing something, coordinating it. Here's another thought. DCP, corrective services, police, child youth justice, they all work together, supposedly. They all work for the same goal, to keep young people out of prisons and to stop young people coming in contact with the legal system. But yet we still sit here and talk about how this happened and how that happened. I think pretty much in my maiden speech I made note of this, and this is what I believe, and this is what I will work towards as a member for Mining and Pastoral. And I would ask anybody else in this place who would like to work towards that to get in contact with me and actually have a yarn, because I have worked firsthand in these places and I do have something to add, something that may not get out there all the time. So I would say that we support a combined review into how government agencies work. I think it would be better for those in the House, other than to sit there and criticise, to get together and make it a joint thing, because without making it a joint thing, it's less likely to proceed, because to debate it back and forwards is a good thing, but we need to stop the debate and we need to get on with it now. Thank you.